And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up, right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
$205,000.
Is that my salary from Angry Marks?
No, that's how much money John Jones just lost in one day.
Jeez, we're going to talk about John Jones. We're going to talk some UFC action that happened this past weekend on Fox. We've got UFC and Bellator to talk about this weekend, and some news as well. But we should talk about the story of the hour, so to speak, and it's Mr. John Jones, who had his hearing today. And folks, this is only part of it, because he has another hearing down the road with USADA.
Yeah, this was the California State Athletic Commission. This was because he failed the drug test for UFC 214 in Anaheim when he beat Daniel Cormier, but subsequently, because he failed the drug test, the result of that fight was overturned and the belt was returned to Daniel Cormier. So he lost the title, he lost $205,000, and he lost his license. He is no longer eligible until it's either reinstated or renewed to fight in the state of California. His license was revoked.
Now, the earliest that he can apply for a license is August of 2018, but to do that, he would still have to go. He still has a USADA hearing, and that's where the tricky part is, because USADA, because of the multiple drug failures and what was revealed in the hearing today, it's looking a lot like he might get the 4-year ban from USADA, and that is honored everywhere.
Right. If he gets banned for 4 years, it doesn't matter whether California could or would reinstate him, because nobody will be using him anywhere.
Now, there's one part of this hearing, Stevie, and I think you know where I'm going with this one.
Probably.
It was revealed during the hearing that John Jones did not read the tutorial about
his USADA testing procedures. He handed it to his management team, and they signed his name to it for him.
Sorry for laughing as I was talking about it, but it almost sounds too ridiculous. It's a USADA tutorial about the rules and regulations. If you have to sign something, I would say, I accept and I've read this package. Bloody important if you're a fighter to read the USADA package, no?
Yeah, well, not to mention the fact that he basically threw his management team under the bus by saying that. He was essentially saying, yeah, they committed a fraud, they committed forgery, they signed my name, they lied on my behalf.
So then one of the people there at the hearing said, maybe you should get a new management team. Have you considered it? And he goes, yeah, I have. Turned to his management team and goes, haha, just joking. It's like, no, this isn't a joke. This is a hearing.
None of this is a joke. Don't sit there with your coffee cup and smile and make jokes. Your entire career is in jeopardy right now. This is not a laughing matter.
No, I mean, okay, I'll be honest. I had a huge rant, or maybe just me just talking for a little while, about the picture that Dana White tweeted about Brock Lesnar, and I was going to talk about Ronda Rousey as well. That got thrown out the window in a matter of hours before we taped tonight's show because of this hearing, because there's so much to delve into.
Yeah, there were a lot of different issues. I want to dive into one that you haven't even brought up yet.
Mm-hmm.
The Turinabol that was in his system. They tested 15 different substances. They tested his supplements, they tested his powders, they tested his creams, they went through every single thing in his cabinet or in his gym, and they couldn't find Turinabol in any of them, yet he says, I don't know how that got in there. I'm just as confused as you are. I'm looking for answers like all of you. You lying sack of...
Hey, let's, I had to, I had tried to explain this to somebody at work today, and I had to do the Simpsons reference where it's like, Chief Wiggum, you're getting powdered sugar over my countertop. No, I'm dusting for prints. No!
Good example. I like it.
It's...
By the way, did you notice that The Simpsons correctly predicted the curling medals?
Yeah, I saw that, and to think, how ridiculous is this that if I told you a year ago that Germany would be in an overtime gold medal game losing to the Olympic athletes from Russia, you'd think, where's Canada, where's the United States, and what the hell happened?
Nope, they were too busy winning medals in curling. That's all I can say about that.
I know. It's just, there was a few things, there's a lot of things that Jon Jones needs to realize here.
Oh, yeah.
This is not a joke. This could be the end of his career. I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm saying, look at me, he's facetiously in the sentence.
You know what? It's not the end of his life, because he could go on and do something else. He could be a real estate agent. He could be a coach. He could go on to professional wrestling like somebody else we're going to talk about. But as a fighter, yeah, he'd be pretty much done. With 4 straight years off, how good is he even going to be at that point?
He's going to be mid to late 30s at that point. And there's no, Legends division in UFC.
No. And people get passed by every day. This doesn't take 4 years to happen. It happens in an instant. Look how quickly we went from Jose Aldo to Max Holloway.
I got a better example, and we can talk about, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but look how badass Renan Barão looked a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, that is an even better example, and now, not so much.
But, I mean, I'd be very interested about if they're going to televise, or not televise, but if they're going to have a live camera in the USADA hearing.
I think public interest will be so high that they'll have to make a statement one way or the other. They'll either say, we realize this hearing is of utmost interest, so we're going to stream it, or for the privacy of the fighter being interviewed here about his failure, we will release a statement after. They're going to have to do one or the other, and they're going to have to make it clear to everybody.
Do you remember the hearing for Chael Sonnen and how his Wikipedia showed Sonnen's disease moments afterwards?
Yes.
It's,
well, that's the problem with Wikipedia, is anybody can edit it.
It's interesting to see the interest, because my Twitter after the hearing, literally blew up. Every story was, in Canada we had our federal budget announced today. On my Twitter, no one was talking about it compared to the MMA news.
Oh yeah, it was the headline on every site. MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, MMA Junkie. You go anywhere on the internet, that's all people were talking about.
Yeah, so it's interesting what the next step is for Jon Jones. He actually thanked the commission for the hearing today, and one of the judges there was saying that, he wanted to thank him out in particular because he said he doesn't believe that Jon Jones would be stupid enough to take a steroid the week of the fight. I'm like, not sure if he is that stupid or not.
Yeah, that was kind of a funny statement, because this is the same guy who fled the scene of an accident. So, we can't exactly say whether Jon Jones is the smartest guy in the world or not based on that.
Did he not hide under a cage to avoid the testers that one time, allegedly?
Allegedly, but I don't know that. That's just one of those internet stories that goes around.
I think Chael Sonnen said that. It might have been on MMA Hour or another.
Well, Chael Sonnen likes to poke and prod and make jokes, so you can't take that at face value.
No, but if you say if it was, I'm more likely to believe Chael Sonnen on that one, to be honest.
Well, you know what? Chael Sonnen is at least man enough to say, I failed a test, I tried to get away with some stuff, and, hey, that's the way it goes because I was trying to get an edge and it didn't work.
Now, I gotta be very careful how I word this, but do you think that in our culture now, if someone tries to cheat the system and apologizes, do you think they get more of a reprieve in the court of public opinion as opposed to someone who denies it like John Jones and says, I never took the steroid?
I don't know that I can phrase it exactly the way you just did. I think there's a better distinction, and I'm going to try to find it, so bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're caught cheating, you're still a cheater. But if you're honest about the fact that you cheated, and you say, I learned my lesson and I'm not going to do it again, give me another chance, please, then you get a second chance to redeem yourself. But if you continue to insist that you didn't do it, and you lie through your teeth about it, even when damning evidence is presented, not just in a court of public opinion, but in actual court, and you still continue to insist that you didn't do it, your credibility is gone. So it's about getting a second chance versus having no credibility. That's the real distinction.
Well, let's transition to somebody whose credibility on Twitter is suspect at best. Dana White tweeted out a photo this weekend. Interesting timing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a picture of him and Brock Lesnar, and Lesnar wearing a UFC shirt. Now, WWE had a pay-per-view in Vegas, home of the UFC, and Brock Lesnar was slated to meet the winner of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view main event match on Raw the next night at the Staples Center.
I know where you're going with this.
He was a no-show. Why would Dana White tweet out a photo of him and Brock wearing UFC shirts the night of a WWE pay-per-view?
I have to ask you a question.
Oh boy.
Did you listen to Wrestling Observer Radio with Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer on Monday night?
No, it's in my queue. I have not had a chance yet.
Okay, because I'm going to give all credit for everything that I say on this topic for the next 30 seconds to Dave and Brian, because they went over this scenario in detail. They went back and forth on the why would they have a segment for Lesnar scheduled for the pay-per-view, or, pardon me, scheduled for Raw. I corrected myself. Why would they have it in the script for the show, then have to rewrite the show because Lesnar was not there? And Dave said, again, I'm going to paraphrase here, and I'm giving him all the credit, so either subscribe to the show and listen to it for yourself, or just take my word as I paraphrase what he said. They did rewrite the show, but it wasn't because of Dana White. They just took advantage of what Dana White gave them. They did not plan for this to be a part of the story, but they saw an opportunity and they took it, and they rewrote the script to give Roman Reigns a promo where he would go out there and say, look at this hotshot millionaire, thinks he's better than all of us, only shows up when he wants to, has other plans, doesn't care about you, isn't here every week, I'm here every week, the boys in the back are here every week, we care, this guy doesn't care, this guy just cares about his check. So, that tweet was not Dana White. Now, I'm going to come as close as I can to quoting Dave on this. That tweet is not Dana White being complicit in a WWE storyline, and if Dana thought he was complicit in a WWE storyline, he'd be pissed about it. So Dana is not doing them any favors. This is just dumb coincidence that blew up everywhere.
Now, Brock's name wasn't the only UFC fighter or former UFC fighter that was mentioned, as Ronda Rousey signed her contract in the ring at the pay-per-view for a full in storyline to become a full-time WWE performer because no legal contract just says Ronda Rousey in big letters.
I know. I was glad you made that distinction because her actual contract was signed a long time ago. This one was just for TV.
Now, did you notice a current UFC fighter in the crowd?
2 of them, as a matter of fact.
Who did you see?
Daniel Cormier and Cain Velasquez.
Oh, I didn't see them. I saw Michael Chiesa.
No, I saw Cormier and Velasquez, which made perfect sense considering, again, the people involved and the proximity to where everything was taking place. And, as a matter of fact, Kane put out a little tweet afterwards saying, you know, I kind of like this pro wrestling stuff. You better look out, Brock.
I don't know about that one.
I kind of got a kick out of it. I was like, yeah, he's teasing that he's going to take Brock's title again. I kind of like that.
I in theory, I like it. There was one I saw there was, you know, if you mentioned Cormier and Kane were in the front row or at the show itself, you could have said you had a former UFC champion and a former UFC heavyweight champion and a potential future UFC heavyweight champion in the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, I think you were saying Ronda was a former UFC fighter. She's still in the rankings.
What?
Yeah, she's still in the bantamweight rankings. You doubt me?
How is that
Go
possible? No, I believe you, but how is that possible?
Because they haven't disqualified her from the rankings. That's how it's possible.
Well, I think that goes towards the...
I mean, she's dropping like a stone. She's at number 11 right now.
Does that go to the talent pool in that division, or they don't have enough fighters, or...
I think it just goes to the reluctance of the voting panel to get rid of her, because they still think of her as the former champion, and nobody has told us not to rank her, so people are still continuing to rank her. But she's not getting ranked highly anymore. Leslie Smith is ahead of her. Betch Correia is ahead of her. Marion Renault is ahead of her, and I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Renault is, that'd be cool to see a Renault fight against Rousey. That's just me. I do want to, you got me with that one. I'll give you that. I almost didn't want to mention this, but since we're talking about UFC or MMA fighters in general making the crossover to the WWE, former Bellator fighter, I'm not sure if he is in Bellator still, but Bobby Lashley signed his contract this week.
Well, one website reported it.
Obviously it's deny until it happens, but...
It's the whole where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly. I'm thinking they're holding off him until the night after WrestleMania.
Probably. They want to make a big splash. They'll save that. They're not going to try to squeeze him into a program with short time before WrestleMania. They'll wait. I mean, he hasn't been in WWE since 2008, so what's the rush? Wait a month, wait a couple of weeks. You know, don't rush it. You don't have to do it right now.
So would he be the first former Bellator fighter to be in WWE?
Oh, what is the guy's name? We had him on the show. Jeremiah?
Yeah, Jeremiah Riggs, yeah.
Yeah, Tough Enough. He fought in Bellator.
Okay, so he would be the second Bellator fighter to after being in Bellator, be in WWE. Okay, I could see that. Mm-hmm. Interesting stat, though. I mean, Jeremiah Riggs and Bobby Lashley is...
Right.
Okay. That's a two... I mean, there's a few guys in Bellator that I would love to see in WWE one day, and, you know, Bobby Lashley, I mean, he could still get some casual fans to be like, oh, I remember him.
Yeah, but to be honest, are people even going to think of it that way? They're more likely going to think, oh, this is the guy who used to be in WWE back in the 2000s. Damn, he still looks good. Most people aren't even going to think about the fact that he was in Bellator. I mean, if they're pro wrestling fans, they're not going to think about that.
No, they're probably not even aware he was in TNA, which is a shame because Colby Covington.
Yeah, Yeah,
I'm
Colby
being
Covington is a
very
pro
careful.
wrestler if there ever was one. Holy shit.
I'm being very careful in what he did this weekend.
Yeah, but let's just say, for the record, as Impact Wrestling goes, Colby Covington and Dan Lambert really understood professional wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. And Bonner had a field day with it as well. But for those who don't know about the Colby Covington situation, I'm not going to mention it on this show. But I encourage you, if you want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes here, check out the Twitter exchange he had this past weekend. And let's just say if I went word for word, we would definitely earn the explicit rating on iTunes this week.
Yes.
Now let's
transition back.
Let's go back to the task at hand here, and it's the UFC show this past weekend on Fox with, boy, oh boy, I almost don't want to say controversial main event because I'll explain in a minute, but it was a noteworthy main event. How about that?
Well, let's just get into what you're teasing instead of leaving the 600-pound elephant there in the room with everybody staring at it and us not talking about it.
Yeah.
There was a finishing sequence in the main event between Emmett and Stevens where Josh Emmett was on his knees, and as Stevens was swinging around wildly, he threw a knee, and to my immediate view and to my view on the replay, the knee was thrown toward a grounded opponent, but the knee did not contact the head.
Mm-hmm.
It landed next to the head, like on the elbow or maybe the ear, but not directly flush to the head. And the referee did not stop the fight, give a foul, or call for a disqualification and rule it a no contest. The fight continued, and Stevens continued to unload on Emmett, and Josh Emmett was knocked out. So the controversy is, should Jeremy Stevens have been disqualified for attempting an illegal knee, whether it landed flush or not?
No. I don't think he should have been disqualified. I think if it landed, absolutely. But you're going to punish someone for the act and it not landing? That's some Minority Report things. They're like punishing something for something that didn't actually happen.
Here's the real kicker to the whole thing.
Kicker? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this is what made it more controversial than it even was. We could watch a replay of this at home, watching on our TVs or our smart devices, but there's no instant replay in Florida. They adopted the new unified rules, but they did not adopt instant replay. So there was no way for them to review this. Once the referee said the fight was over, the winner was by knockout, that was it. It was unreviewable.
Now, there is an appeal that has been filed, but they're not adopting instant replay, so you're going to base your appeal on eyewitness accounts.
He's not going to win the appeal. I hate to tell him, but it's not going to happen because we've already got the precedent laid down that the referee did not stop the fight. Therefore, the referee made the correct call because there's no replay to overrule the referee. That's the way it's going to go.
Now, the problem that I have is not so much the appeal process, but it's sort of like pick your shots. It's like if you're going to appeal, make sure that your appeal can actually win. Don't throw a frivolous appeal and clog up the system when you have other cases on that docket that, if there's a justifiable reason, absolutely. This just seems frivolous to me.
And if he had actually been hit directly in the head with that knee and it had knocked him loopy and that was the end of the fight, if that knee was what knocked him out while he was grounded, hell yeah, appeal that shit. But that knee wasn't what ended the fight.
Nope. No, it was, overall, it was a good fight.
It was a hell of a fight.
It just ended not the greatest, right, with the controversy. But
for those who I want to quote Dave here again for just a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because Dave said, and I agree with this, that Stevens was already on his way to winning the fight when the potentially illegal shot was thrown. Because Stevens had rocked him and knocked him down, and he was going for the finish and chasing after it. So it's not like it changed the outcome of the fight either way, because Emmett was still getting finished.
Well, for those who are wondering, Stevens wins the main event in the second round at 135.
That is correct. 135 of the second round. And not 135 pounds, because this was a featherweight fight.
Right. Now, quickly, let's move on to Tisha Torres and Jessica Andrade. This one went to the judges, and I have no problem with Andrade winning by unanimous decision here.
You know what's weird about this fight?
Oh, boy. Okay. I'll bite. What's weird?
Now, when you look at the size of these two women, this was actually one of the best matchups Tisha Torres has had in a while, because she wasn't physically dwarfed by her opponent, and if you look at their physique, I would argue that Tisha Torres was actually the more ripped fighter of the two. She is incredibly jacked for a woman of her size, but size ain't shit necessarily, because ripped or not, Jessica Andrade woman-handled her, threw her around like a rag doll, and pretty much had her way with her.
I mean, I understand where you're going with that argument. It's just, I counter that with someone who was never in a million years defined as a ripped fighter, and he would whoop your ass. And that's Fedor.
That's true, but Fedor was...
He looked like a dad bod. That's what that was. That was the average weekender.
No, I wouldn't go that far. He was a master of disguise. He didn't go out there with a ripped six-pack per se, but if you watched the guy swing kettlebells around in training, you knew this was a guy with a lot of power in his punch.
Is it wrong when I hear kettlebells swinging around, I think of the Iron Sheik with those clubs?
I can sort of see that, but I don't think you want to flip a kettlebell in the air like the Iron Sheik did with his clubs. That's a bad idea.
All the way around, bad idea. Speaking of bad ideas, when you're caught in a guillotine choke, maybe tap out?
Actually, there's an argument about that, too. I'm not saying it's as controversial as the main event, but there is an argument that Ovince St. Preux tapped.
All right, well, Iri Latifi and OSP only lasted 3 minutes and 48 seconds for the entire fight. In our MMA draws panel, everybody had OSP, and everybody was wrong.
How did we do? What were our standings overall after it was all said and done?
We don't have those updated numbers. The updates happen when the new picks are announced. But I do know that I went 3-2 on this week's picks. I actually picked one of the upsets, so this was not it, obviously, because everybody went with OSP, and he got clipped. He got clipped.
That's what I was about to say. Ilir Latifi showed him the power of the punch.
Yeah, OSP was staggered, and then a standing guillotine choke, and it's over?
Yeah, so
that was quick.
Let's break this down so that everybody who didn't watch it knows what we're trying to say here. Yet sometimes you can accuse the referee of not looking for things or being out of position, but in this case, the referee was standing on the side where the guillotine choke was being applied. So he was actually in the right position, but in the wrong position to see the tap, because he was checking on Ovince St. Preux and seeing whether or not he was okay. So, on the replay, on the other side of his body, where the referee couldn't see, it appeared that OSP might have been trying to tap. The problem was, he couldn't see it, and it was a very weak attempt, and Ilir Latifi said, well, he might have been trying to tap, but the referee didn't stop it, and I go for the finish. And that's actually what you're supposed to do. And OSP went to sleep, Ilir Latifi let go, and he dropped. And that was the end of the fight.
If I told you OSP was going to pass out from a guillotine choke, you would have thought I was on something.
No.
Maybe a steroid. I don't know.
We've had enough talk about steroids already.
But Ilir Latifi, what a win, and that definitely will boost his ranking. Well, was it Stevens or Latifi that called out Cormier?
I believe that would be Latifi that called out Cormier, because Cormier was playing coy on commentary, and he was like, let me not talk about this. This is Ilir Latifi's moment. I'm not going to respond to that. No, wait, I am, because they must be stupid to make that fight. They must like giving me money.
I mean, it's the old argument of if you talk, shit about your opponent, you're basically talking your way into a fight. And last time I checked, Cormier's got some UFC gold on his waist, so...
Yeah, but he's got a little super fight coming up for the heavyweight title, so Latifi's not getting that anytime soon.
Just a little one, just a small fight, nothing major, I don't think.
Actually, probably one of the biggest UFC fights of the year.
Yeah, well, I'll make this prediction now. That fight won't go to the judges.
Yeah, well, that's what they said about Jeremy Stevens and Josh Emmett too, so yeah, that turned out to be a good prediction.
Now, let's round out the main card. Mike Perry and Max Griffin goes to the judges, and it's 30-27, 29-27, and 29-27 for Griffin.
You know what the problem was with this fight?
I could think of one or two, but go ahead.
Mike Perry is much beloved in Orlando. Mike Perry is a guy who's known for getting knockouts. Mike Perry is a very charismatic guy, but the problem with all of those things is that he's gonna go out there, he's gonna try to get his famous knockout, he's gonna try to pop the hometown crowd, and in the process, all he was doing was swinging for home runs and not getting them. And the longer he kept swinging and not getting them, the more tired he got.
Like, how much gas is behind those knockout shots?
Apparently, in Mike Perry's case, a hell of a lot, because by that third round, he was sucking wind.
We mentioned this on the show. God, I've lost count how many times, but the cardio of some of these fighters, some of them are they can, like the Energizer Bunny, they could fight for days. And some it's like, you're not planning for a 3-round fight, are you? Because eventually, if you're really, really good, you're going to have to fight a 5-round fight.
Mm-hmm. You should train like it's 5, even if you're fighting 3. That's what many a fighter has told me.
Now, do you think that will change in the next, 2-3 years?
I don't know.
It's hopefully we see something, but it's something where when it comes to fighters and their cardio.
But not every fighter is ever going to be built to go 5 rounds or to train for 5 and go 3.
Some champions don't have cardio in their tank, that's for sure.
I'm just saying that some people could potentially be UFC winners, Bellator winners, even world champion level, and not have cardio, because if you can go out there and finish people, it doesn't matter. But eventually, it will matter, but you can get to a certain level without cardio. You're going to be better with it than without it, but it doesn't mean you can't achieve.
But isn't that the Tank Abbott example of if you can survive the bull rush, if you can survive the first 5 minutes of a fight, the guy's going to be easy pickings afterwards.
I've often said that about guys like Semtex, that he's a bull in the first round, but if you take him the distance, you got an edge.
Now, moving on to the prelims, the one fight everyone's talking about is Renan Barão and Brian Keller.
Well, they're talking about it because Renan Barão said all these things leading up to this fight about how he was going to reinvent himself, how he was going to go on another run for the title, how he was going to get back to his old ways. He had never felt better. He had never trained better. And, well, no. He said a lot of things and basically didn't deliver.
I believe myself and Josh Nason were the only two to pick the fight correctly. And Keller, if you saw the last 10 seconds of this fight, you would think if this was another 30 seconds, Keller was going to have this fight stopped.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
He poured it on at the end.
Yeah, speaking of having more gas in the tank, Keller, he really had it.
Now, is a win over Barao in 2018 as impressive as beating Barao in, say, 2016?
No, or 2014 for that matter, but
yeah.
That's how long ago we're talking about him really being a dominant factor. So, I'm not saying it isn't a notable win, but if you're talking this made Kelleher the next level, no, you can't go ahead and say that, because he needs to go ahead and move way, way up the ladder above Renan Barao to actual top bantamweights, and then you're talking.
For the other prelim fights, you had Marion Renault beating Sarah McMahon in a triangle choke, Angela Hill beating Marianne Moreau's unanimous decision, and Alan Jabouin with probably the knockout of the year over Ben Saunders.
It was a pretty good knockout. I don't think it was knockout of the year, because this is only February and March. You know, we're not that far along yet.
Well, maybe so far, because the clip that I saw, because I was at a Femme Fatale show this Saturday night, so I was catching some of the highlights, and whoever did the highlight put the Nesty plunge of Saunders in slow motion after the shot. Talk about scary in slow motion. I hate to see it in real time.
Yeah, it didn't look too good for the Killer Bee, but you know what? He was respectful about his opponent before the fight. He was respectful after the fight, and I salute him for that. He went out on his sword and shield, just like he said he was going to. He said, win or lose, I'm going to go out there and have a hell of a fight, and that's what he did.
2:38 of the second round was the time. And as far as the other prelims, I had some requests to talk about this one. Sam Alvey and Marcin Prashino.
Yeah.
Smiling Sam Alvey, lots to smile about here.
Except, what happened to McKee Sullivan?
I'm not sure. What do you mean?
She
I might have missed
was
that.
on crutches. You didn't notice?
No, but I don't think they announced the reason either.
No, but I felt so bad for her, because she's still out there cornering her man, being supportive, and I'm just feeling terrible for her. I'm like, did she slip on the ice? Did she do some cardio training and accidentally get too far into it and rip something? I mean, what happened to her? Poor girl.
I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
I even Googled it to try to find out, and I couldn't find shit.
Well, I don't have the answer for you, unfortunately, but also Randy Yaya.
Seriously though, Peter, this is a former America's Next Top Model. How could you not be looking at her and notice? I mean, we make this joke all the time. We always say that Alvey has a lot to be smiling about.
I'm going to be treading very lightly on this one, because I'm
a married man too, but there's nothing wrong with looking.
No, I actually saw her in person here in Ottawa when the UFC visited here, so I can absolutely see why she was on America's Top Model, or Next Top Model. It's one of those things that, I don't know why the crutches were in play here, but, yeah, she's quite stunning. I will give you that.
Even on crutches, she's quite stunning.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy Yaya beat Russell Doan via submission at the third round at 2:32, arm triangle choke.
You know what? I really enjoyed this, and it's because I've been watching Ronnie, and they were pretty clear to point out, Ronnie, not Hani. He actually wants people to say Ronnie. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching Ronnie Yaya since, I feel like the late 2000s, back in the WEC days. And it's just nice to see what I consider to be an old lion of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to see he's still got it, he's still that good, and you don't want to go to the ground with this guy because you're going to have a bad time.
And to round out the card, Alex Perez beat Eric Shelton, and Manny Bermudez beat Albert Morales. Perez wins a decision, and Bermudez wins a guillotine choke.
You know, for a card that had very little buzz going in and probably didn't do a great rating going out, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Sometimes these Fox shows are hit or miss. This was a hit.
Yeah, this was a very good way to spend a Saturday.
All right, so speaking about Saturdays, we do have a fight this Saturday. It's UFC 22. Cyborg against what you said, a punching bag, Stevie.
Yeah, Kunitskaya, welcome to your doom.
Oh boy, welcome to the wasteland. This is not going to be a barn burner decision fight, that's for sure.
No, this ain't gonna go 5 rounds like a fight with Holly Holm.
Yana's 10-3, Cyborg's 19-1. Same height, 5'8".
Not the same physique.
No, God, no. Cyborg, last time we saw her, ripped beyond belief. And Yana, not as ripped, but more natural looking, I will say that.
Now, I will give Kunitskaya some respect. I know I've been making jokes about her being a punching bag, but let's just be perfectly fair about this. She won the vacant Invicta Bantamweight Championship. Now, she had lost a fight to Tanya Evinger for the title before that, but Evinger vacated the title. So, she had a fight with Raquel Paolai and beat her to win the title in a 5-round unanimous decision. So, give the girl some props. But at the same time, that's a bantamweight title. She's fighting a featherweight, and she's fighting a ripped out of her fucking mind featherweight who kills just about everybody not named Holly Holm.
Now, she's going into this fight against someone who the division is built around. So,
yeah, there's not even a division. You can't rank fighters at featherweight, and I know because I vote.
Now there's the bantamweight. This is the cyborg weight. I mean,
you know what? That's actually a better name for this division. There's strawweight, flyweight, bantamweight, and cyborg weight.
Why not? And hell, we might see atomweight down the road. Who knows?
I think that's going to be a long time off.
All right, so Cyborg, I'm just gonna. We have lots of stuff to get to. You're picking Cyborg to win this fight in the main event.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be pretty. It's probably going to be a round.
Now let's talk about Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega. Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega on paper, this could steal the show.
Well, yeah, because Brian Ortega is the master of the triangle choke, and Frankie Edgar is one of the toughest sons of bitches that this UFC sport has ever seen, whether it's featherweight or lightweight. And actually, I should say mixed martial arts, not just UFC, but I think of UFC, I think of Frankie Edgar. It kind of goes hand in hand.
Now, it's not, taking anything away from Ortega, but Frankie Edgar is, Frankie Edgar. I mean, if he wins this fight, it's a huge win for him.
Yeah,
but
it puts him basically right back in the driver's seat to get back in there and get another title shot.
So I'm just curious, who do you have in this one? I'm going to go with Edgar though. I think he's still got enough to win here, but I mean, this is why you fight the fights, but I'm going to still go with Edgar. I
was actually trying to find the line on Cyborg because I was curious about it. And it turns out she is the minus 1,700 favorite. So,
come on.
So if you got $100 and you want to win 1,100 on a fluke, go for Kunitskaya. Frankie Edgar, minus 170, Brian Ortega, plus 150. I think that's right. The cardio of Frankie Edgar is second to none. He is one of those stamina workhorses who just never, ever, ever seems to get tired. And this is only a 3-round fight, so he's just gonna go and go. He's, like you said, the Energizer Bunny in this fight.
Yep. Absolutely. Boy, where do I go from here?
Sukum Toth and Sean O'Malley, that's where you go. And this card kind of drops off a cliff after the first 2 fights. Let's be honest.
There's another fight down the road we're going to talk second. But O'Malley,
Sean
yeah.
O'Malley has a lot of hype. You know, with Tyrion Ware, he did okay, but he didn't go out there and deliver the knockout like everybody expected him to.
Because of the height difference, I'm going to go with O'Malley. But very cautiously, I'm picking O'Malley. I could very well see him losing this fight. But
yeah, Sigurdsson is actually a minus 140 favorite.
Yeah. Maybe I'm believing in the slight upset here.
I kind of feel like O'Malley got exposed in his last fight.
This would be a perfect time to say, there's no weakness. See, I proved it. You could make this a statement fight. But
well, if he goes out there and gets a knockout like he used to, then yeah.
Now, what about Andrei Arlovski and Stefan Struve? This is a fight. Yeah.
5-6 years ago, I would have been so excited about this fight. And now, with these two guys at this point in their careers, this is like a retirement fight. The loser should just get a pink slip and say, it's been nice, we'll see you at the Hall of Fame.
Stefan Struve versus Andrei Arlovski, where one guy's 7 foot and one guy's 6'4".
Yeah, but if there's ever been an example of size ain't shit, Stefan Struve has been beaten so many times that it just doesn't even make sense to talk about him being 7 foot anymore, because it doesn't help him at all.
But Arlovski's on that second wind of his career, so to speak.
Right, and
at some point, that second wind is going to go.
Yeah, well, I think it already has. I think he had a nice little run there for a cup of coffee in his second run when he beat Schaub and Silva and Brown and Mir, and it looked like things were going to go his way. And then he lost 5 straight and squeaked out a win by decision over Junior Albini. So, at this point, all I can say for him is, you're a legend, you're a former champion, but you're nowhere near the cream of the crop. And Struve is just a lot of potential that's never been fulfilled. Period. He's never even been a champion. At least Arlovski has that.
I'm going... Boy, oh boy.
If it helps, the line is minus 185 Struve, plus 160 Arlovski.
I'm actually leaning towards Arlovski right now.
So am I, believe it or not, because I feel like he's the better striker of the two, and Struve, unless this fight goes to the ground, I don't see how Struve wins.
Yeah. Kat Zingano and Ketlin Vieira round out the main card.
Minus 145 Vieira, plus 125 Zingano.
Jeez, I'm picking another upset here. I'm going to go with Zingano.
Yeah, but that's a pretty close line. That's almost coin flip.
Are there any fights on the prelim you want to mention before we move on to the Bellator show this week?
Let me see. Beneil Dariush is a heavy favorite over Alexander Hernandez. I think that makes sense. Dodson is a small favorite over Pedro Munoz. I'll call that a good decision. Brian Caraway, Misha Tate's man there, is in the prelims fighting Cody Stamen, and he's the underdog, a slight underdog at plus 145, minus 165 for Stamen.
You know the fight I'm looking at, though.
Let me see. Johnson Milstead, Pyle Otto, Dalloway Lombard.
Yeah, Dalloway Lombard in 2018.
We're getting Arlovski and Struve.
I guess, but Dalloway Lombard. Boy,
you know
oh
what?
boy.
This whole card, other than the top 2 fights, is kind of like, why?
It's the fast lane of the UFC calendar.
Yes. Boy, did you ever call that right.
Let's move on to the Bellator show. We'll wrap up the show with news this week. Bellator, they're going to be in Uncasville. No, wait, that's the old card. Never mind. Thackerville, Oklahoma. Bellator 195, Caldwell and Higo.
That's right. Darian Caldwell defends the bantamweight title against a man who once went in a non-title fight against Eduardo Dantas to a split decision. So basically, he earned a future title shot by almost beating the champion in a non-title fight. If that sounds weird, it's the truth. What can I tell you?
I'm going to pick the guy with the big tattoos.
I think I'm just going to pick Caldwell because Caldwell is such an elite level wrestler that he's just going to take this guy down at will.
And for those who don't know, I'm being funny because they both have big tattoos. I'm also going to go Caldwell. Now, the next fight here, we talked on this show a lot over the last year about some fighters who should hang him up.
You saying Joe Warren is at that point?
If he gets beat by Joe Tommaso here, maybe.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, probably not. Warren, I hate calling him underrated. I really have a problem with that.
He's a multi-time world champion. How could he be?
But when you see him, I mean, this guy should be main eventing cards.
Well,
should,
yeah,
I should say. Should.
But he's not the champion, and Caldwell is, so there you go.
Does a win here put him in the conversation for a title shot?
It's 3 of his last 4 if he wins. I guess he'd be on the short list.
Maybe they should have another Grand Prix.
Not in 2018. I think 1 is enough.
You're going with Warren as well?
Yeah, Joe. See, here's the thing with Joe Minglo. I like the tenacity and the ferocity that he shows in fights, and how he'll take advantage of any mistake and capitalize in a big way, but he is just so damn small.
Yeah.
I know I said size ain't shit, but I'm talking about how you can be really big and it can't help you, whereas you can be too small and it can hurt you, because he's given up a huge amount of reach and a huge amount of weight, not just to Joe Warren, but to pretty much anybody he fights.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Warren in this fight as well.
All right.
Emily Ducote and Christina Williams. Stevie?
Now, this is probably, for me, the most intriguing fight of the whole card.
Tell me a little bit about Christina Williams, because I know about Ducote.
All right. Well, the story on Christina Williams is that she made her professional mixed martial arts debut after having 8 Muay Thai fights, and people didn't really know how good of a kickboxer she was until she blew up Heather Hardy and destroyed her nose. And after that one-sided beating, which led to a technical knockout loss when the doctors stopped the fight, Christina Williams had instantly made her name in Bellator, which is how she gets on the main card here with Emily Ducote. But Ducote has been in 2 fights with Alima Lane McFarlane, and those are the only 2 Bellator fights that she's lost. Nobody else has been able to beat Gordina, because she is just that tough, that strong, and that dangerous in any grappling position. So, you gotta be at the next level to beat her, and so far, that's only Alima Lane. So the intriguing part of this fight is, can Emily Ducote solve the puzzle that Christina Williams presents to her? A long, lanky kickboxer who will try to keep her at range and blast her in the face, or can she duck under it, double leg her, and beat her up on the ground? Stylistically, this is an outstanding fight.
Ducote is giving up 6 inches of height here.
That's why I said long and lanky.
Those kicks don't have to go as high. Those kicks can be short and still have that power.
And have more power, actually, because she can swing faster from a shorter angle.
I think this fight can be summed up in 2 words. Don't blink.
Yeah, but I'm saying don't count Emily Ducote out, because...
Oh, I'm not. I'm just saying don't blink.
She's looked at the film of what Heather Hardy did in the fight with Christina Williams, and she's not going to make the same mistakes.
Well, that's why they fight the fights. Juan Archuleta against William Joplin round out the main card.
I don't even have that on my list.
Okay, maybe it got changed Sometimes they do this last minute. As far as the prelims go, any names on here you want to talk about before we move on to the news?
I'd say look out for Romero Cotton at middleweight. He's one of their prospects, and he didn't have the perfect fight in his debut, but he's got big things ahead of him if he gets it all together.
I just got an update. We talked about Brock Lesnar earlier on in the show.
Yes.
There's an update.
Yes.
Dana White said, quote, "The odds of Lesnar returning to the UFC are very, very, very good."
Uh-huh.
Oh boy.
Well, we'll just see about that.
I mean, there's this little show in April. You might have heard of it. It's called WrestleMania. And the night after WrestleMania, Brock's a free agent. I'm just saying, we might see a return. The problem with Brock is we've talked about this before to death, but he is technically retired. He has to unretire. Plus there's that little bitty matter of his suspension.
Yeah, and not to mention the whole reason they wanted him to come back was because John Jones cut that post-fight promo at UFC 214, and he said, "Brock Lesnar, if you want to get that ass whooped, step in this octagon." Well, guess what? John Jones ain't going to be cleared to fight because he's already had his license revoked and he's got a USADA hearing coming up. So, that fight is never going to happen.
Unless he waits until the suspension is lifted in August. If. I mean, it's a big if right now because USADA hearing still has to happen. So, if right now.
I think Dana White is doing what Dana White's going to do because, as you said, Dana White tweets things, and not everything that he tweets is always going to be what the situation is.
Now, just to move on, because we're running low on time, I do want to mention, if you want to see a great knockout, look up One Championship 68.
Oh, yeah.
It was like he owed him money.
You're telling me, brother, I watched this card. I got up at 7:30 in the morning to watch this show. Ong Long Nog Sa. I'm not even saying his name right, but damn. You say the name for me.
No, that's pretty much close as I could get, so. I can't believe you watched that live. I watched that on delay, but.
Yeah, actually, it was the first of quite a few, spectacular finishes. My favorite was a fighter named Fo Ta.
It's a situation where the opponent was kind of staggered by a punch, and then before he could realize where he was, the foot just met his face. And it's scarier in replay, but watching it in real time, it's that shiver right down your spine of, oh, he got smoked.
And this is a 2-weight class champion now, because he took the light heavyweight title.
Yeah, go check it out, folks. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and check out Fo Ta's photo finish.
Rani Yaya wants to fight either Brian Caraway or, for some reason, Uriah Faber. I thought Faber was retired.
He is.
Okay, maybe Yaya's just dreaming or something, I don't know.
He's just calling out people from Alpha Male. He's just picking names.
Now, we do have a title fight to announce for Bellator 200.
That's right. We have a main event of Rafael Cavallo defending the middleweight title against Gegard Mousasi at the SSE Arena in London in May.
So that's something to look out for. Did you hear the story about, we touched on the Saunders-Joubin fight. Joubin, it turns out, broke his foot before the knockout.
Yeah, I did hear that.
So, to break your foot and then still have the manhood, for lack of a better term, to, okay, I just broke my foot, I'm gonna knock this guy out because I gotta get this set. You know, like, it's amazing. I've never broken my foot, but it sounds, I mean, I would imagine it's pretty damn painful.
Well, that's why I said there was a lot of warrior spirit between the two of these men in this fight.
Yeah, fighting spirit's a good way as well. UFC 225 in Chicago, Sergio Pettis against Joseph Benavidez.
All right.
And that looks to be all my news. I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't miss anything. Davis and Vassell booked for the same Bellator 200 show. We talked about that. You talked about that earlier. Evan Dunham and Marbek Tasimov booked for 223 in Brooklyn. And we talked about John Jones at length, which I knew we would today. I think that's everything here. I don't see anything else breaking as far as this recording. So, Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday Night AMP?
I believe we'll be discussing the Elimination Chamber and the New Japan Honor Rising ROH shows they did, the co-branded.
Now, I do want to mention, I did mention this earlier, I did check out Femme Fatale 20. It was a co-promotion with Lutte Quebec, Femme Fatale, and the C4 Wrestling promotion here in Ottawa. It was an all-women's show. It was amazing, and Pat LaPrade put on a hell of a show.
All right, well, cheers to Pat LaPrade. Hopefully you got a chance to talk to him and invite him to come on our network.
Well, maybe one day. I mean, he's quite the author, and there's a couple of great books out there. If you haven't read it, I recommend the accepted book, The Story of Pat Patterson.
Indeed.
All right, well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H., the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. As I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
See ya.